Dilly ding, dilly dong, he's back.
It's Saturday, it's me, it's Harry. This is the Football Natter. So Harry, what's on the agenda this week?
So we have the Championship and the possible teams going for promotion. News from the Premier League with Ranieri as the new Fulham manager, VAR for next season, and Richard Scuddymoore's £5 million leaving bonus. And finally, a few thoughts from last weekend's FA Cup games.
Let's kick things off then with Leeds United. That's one of the teams we've picked as we picked five, which we're going to go into a little bit more. So we'll start with Leeds. So at the start of this season, or in the summer, announcing the manager as Marco Bielsa was one of the best signings they could have made. The Argentine with tons of experience. He knows how to set a team to win. His kind of whole idea around pressing, and I saw a clip the other week from when they played Wigan. The fact that a player was running through past the half and within like 5-6 seconds there were 7 Leeds players around him. That is how to press, and they're really adapting to that, Leeds, and if they follow his style of football, they are really going to be up there towards the end of the season. And you kind of look at the start they had, who they've brought in, Lewis Baker from Chelsea, Jack Harrison from Manchester City on a season-long loan. They've got quality players. Kemar Roof, 7 goals already this season. Hernandez, who just seems to even though he's getting older, he seems to have the same quality. 5 goals for him. They're third in the table. And they have just got such good players, and the players which you need to mount a promotion push, which is why I think they're definitely going to be up there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him up there. Again, it's like with, in the Championship last season, it's more bringing in a superstar manager almost. You saw Rafa Benitez down in the Championship and how well Newcastle did. And, do you think that Bielsa and maybe a key player like Lewis Baker, who was so effective from Chelsea, did brilliant when he was on loan at Vitesse, do you think that manager combined with superstar loanees is going to get them through it?
100%. And I think what is good with young players, okay, so they might be inconsistent at times, but on their day, they always have the hunger to try and get better. Older players, they come to the ends of their career and they think, oh, well, I'll just kind of pitter about and not really, I want to win, but it's not the end of the world because I'm retiring, I've had my career. Yeah. But young players are fighting for a career in such a competitive, the whole kind of youngsters in the Premier League. Lewis Baker, we've seen it with Loftus-Cheek. He's had to fight to stay at Chelsea, not get shipped out on loan and stay and fight for a place, which he's now doing. Now is Lewis Baker's chance to go out on loan to another English club. If he gets promotion with Leeds, he's got a great chance of staying with Chelsea next season and trying to get in the squad. He's Jack Harrison as well. Obviously, Manchester City signed him from New York City, and he kind of went on loan to Middlesbrough this last season. He did okay, but now is his chance at Leeds to stake a regular claim in an English team, get promotion, and show the Man City what they're missing.
Sounds good for them, doesn't it? So, should we look at another team?
Yeah, go for it.
So, Derby County is a team I've looked at. So, they're 6th in the Championship under Lampard. And you've got to say, that's quite a good start. They're always in there and abouts, but maybe they can really push for it this season. So, they lost one key player in Vidra who went to Burnley. He's not been overly impressive over there, but he was great for Derby. But players like Jack Marriott, Harry Wilson, and, Mason Mount from Chelsea as well, they've been very effective. What have you thought about them so far?
Well, I think the fact Mason Mount got in the England squad and Harry Wilson got in the Wales squad just shows you how good they have been in the Championship. Because how often have we seen, Wales is a different story because they don't have the top international players. But for England, for Gareth Southgate, the England manager, to call up a player from the Championship into the main England squad is such an unheard of thing, but such a big thing for him, and it just shows you how impressive he's been. And Jack Marriott especially, coming from League One Peterborough last season, scoring 33 goals in all competitions, They've picked him from, spent millions of pounds to get him, and we are seeing in the last few games how good he is. Scoring against Chelsea, scoring against Manchester United in the Carabao Cup games, scoring in his 4 in his last 5 games for Derby. He's hit the ground running in the Championship, and with him up front, with players like Mason Mount in the middle, Craig Bryson, who's just an ever-present almost for Derby. He's such a big player for them in the midfield. They're going to have a right good chance of promotion with the young manager that is Frank Lampard. What do you make of Frank Lampard's start to a manager career?
I mean, again, I'll say it's quite impressive because a lot of the managers, especially from that generation of players, they've come out, they've tried, and they've not been so successful. You might look at Gary Neville at Valencia, and from the same generation, even Thierry Henry.
Oh, yeah,
and he's been terrible at Monaco. They're 19th place in Ligue 1 right now. So I think it's been quite a good start. They're on 28 points, only 3 from second place Middlesbrough, so it's more than doable to even push further than where they are at the moment.
So tight at the top.
So tight, exactly. And it's been a good first go. You wouldn't have expected them to be above the likes of Stoke, Swansea or Aston Villa, would you, before this season? But they are. So, you mentioned Jack Marriott. You've gone over some stats like 33 goals for Peterborough last season. That was pretty amazing in all competitions. Yet 4 goals in the last 5. He scored a few more than that, but you can expect big things from Jack Marriott, can't you? Is he going to be the man to get the goals for a playoff position?
Well, he's kind of got everything you need in a striker. That makes him prolific. He's got pace, which automatically gives you an advantage against defences at any point in the game, let alone late on when centre backs are kind of a bit worn out. From the get go, he will run at defences. He will tire them out. He'll press from the front, and that's the whole. That's a big key thing to Derby, pressing from the front. They've got Tom Lawrence on one side, Bogle on the other, Jack Marriott up front. Waghorn as well. They press so well from the front, which sets them up so nicely for why you have players like Harry Wilson and Mason Mount score loads of goals, because they press from the front, so they win it high up. They don't have to build up exactly because they win it so high up. And Jack Marriott, all you've got to do is play him in behind, and 9 out of 10 times he will score. Because he's prolific. We saw against Chelsea, he scored such a good goal into the corner with his weaker foot. So he is going to be huge for Derby this season. It's good to see that he's taken his form from last season into the Championship, and if he keeps consistent, they've got a hell of a chance.
Yeah, and Harry Wilson, who we've also picked up on, he's on loan from Liverpool, in fact. He's been playing on the wing, but he's already got 4 goals in 14 games, which I thought was quite an impressive tally, to be fair. And he's quality at free kicks, isn't he? We've seen that.
United.
Yeah, against Manchester United. We've seen a couple more, which have been brilliant. And he's been called up for his national team in Wales. And even Jurgen Klopp is saying he's very impressed in the big steps he's taken. So maybe that's a promising thing to look at. So overall, Derby, some really good attacking football, as we've seen against, for example, Man United in the Carabao Cup and Chelsea in the FA Cup, so against the really top teams. Perhaps this team could take some inspiration and really go on and push for promotion this season.
So Derby, there's one thing that has kind of shown them to be a little bit weak, and why maybe that race for promotion is going to be a bit tougher, and that is often their defence is quite leaky, quite sloppy. Certainly in the games against Millwall, they conceded quite sloppy goals, and kind of if they tighten up at the back, even if it's just conceded a couple goals less, they are going to be such. And they showed when they beat West Brom 4-1 that they can score goals. Now it's just about sorting out the defence, and they will certainly be up there. On to Norwich. 5 wins in their last 5 games, top of the Championship now.
Amazing.
When you look at the start of their season, at the start of this season, they lost 3 games, only won 1 of their first 5 games. So they didn't start well. They lost to Leeds 3-0. So they didn't have the best start. But it's what Farke, the manager, has been able to do with the squad he's got. He's got Leitner, who signed for £1 million from Augsburg. Buendia, £1 million from Getafe. Pukki's got 10 goals already this season. They've kept players like Tim Close, who are in the Championship. They've got players like Jordan Rhodes, who in the Championship is one of the most prolific strikers. You know, he was unfortunate to not do very well in the Premier League. With Middlesbrough, he didn't really get the chance he wanted. Middlesbrough couldn't score goals for toffee when they're in the Premier League. But in the Championship, there's a reason why clubs have fought over him and why Middlesbrough fought to sign him, because he essentially led them to promotion that season. He's got 8 goals this season. And he's very much like Dwight Gale, who we'll move on to later when we talk about West Brom. But Norwich City, last season they were mid-table. No one really saw them going for promotion. But this season, it just seems like everything's clicked. And we could well be seeing them fighting for the playoffs, fighting for automatic promotion if they keep this current form up. So they've been a little bit of a shock this season.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And again, first place, it shows that they're starting to get a bit of consistency together, and the recent results show that as well. They've got to make sure that they can maintain that, though, because Norwich, I think you'd agree, they're one of the biggest yo-yo clubs in England, aren't they? They just can't manage to stay in one league or the other. But if they really are going for the Premier League, it's like we've said before, they might need to just bring that strengthened team up. But obviously that's a long way away. So we're just going to see where it goes for them. There are lots of teams around them who we're going to discuss, who may well overtake them or be crowned champions. Who knows?
Well, they've got Swansea next weekend. That's live on Sky Sports if you do want to watch it. I'm not trying to plug Sky Sports there. I wish I was sponsored by them, to be honest. So they've got Swansea next weekend, which is going to be a big test for them, because Swansea have started the season well. Funnily enough, not one of the clubs we've actually picked to focus on specifically, but Swansea are another one who will be looking for promotion straight back to the Premier League. So we'll see how their season goes. But that is going to be a big test for them because it's away at the Liberty Stadium. And if they can come away with a win there, that kind of just show their intent for this season. Once again, that'll make it 6 wins on the bounce. Incredible run of form. And then when you start to get in those runs of form, you find it very hard to stop it.
Yeah, you certainly do. And another team who have been in good form, but maybe in a different way, is Middlesbrough. They're second in the Championship, so right behind them, but their form is much more defensive. So they've only conceded 8 goals in the 17 games, which, to be honest, is absolutely amazing, isn't it? But this has come at a price, because they've only scored 19 times. So does this reflect what happened to them in the Premier League? Is there growing a philosophy at Middlesbrough that if you keep a tight defence, you'll be all right? And if they're going for promotion, do you think this is good enough?
Well, it's Tony Pulis. He's never... Any Tony Pulis team is not a goal-scoring team. They are shut tight, sit there, nick a goal. And when you look to the Middlesbrough Derby game the other week, 1-1, both goals were own goals. Both goals. But Middlesbrough didn't even actually score themselves for their own team that day. And we saw in the Premier League, they didn't score, and they got relegated. The Championship is different in the fact that you don't always have to score to win promotion. But if Middlesbrough do go up, and if they do win this race for promotion along with 2 other teams, they are gonna have to invest because, I mean, they've got a Stombolonga up front who, at Nottingham Forest and at Middlesbrough before Tony Pulis arrived, was a prolific striker in the Championship, and they'll be counting on him to get the goals. He's a physical player, he's a physical threat. But he needs to start scoring goals consistently to make sure that they can afford to let the odd goal in, because at the minute they score in a game and they're holding on to get the win, which I'm pretty sure as a fan you'd be happy if you were still winning games, but as a attractive football, to attract viewers to the Championship, it's not really what hoofball isn't really what they want to see. And like I say, if they do get promoted, they are going to have to invest.
Yeah, and the thing that really worries me about this team is 0 players in the top 25 scorers in the league. They don't have that individual who's possibly going to carry them and be vital if they did manage to get that promotion. So, to be honest, Jack, do you think they should bring back the absolute goal machine that is Alvaro Negredo?
Does he still play football?
I don't know.
I think he's dying at Pesquitas or something. No. Oh, God. Alvaro Negredo was the worst. Everybody thought, oh, yeah, he's going to everybody thought Negredo was going to do what he did at Manchester City and score the odd goal and be surrounded by world-class players. But unfortunately, when you're surrounded by people like Stuart Downing and George Friend, you're not really going to get the service to score the goals, really, are you? So, at the end of the day, Middlesbrough, if they're going to get promotion, are going to scrape it. But, and what's exciting is that you have plenty of teams around them scoring goals, and West Brom is certainly one of those teams. Yeah. Beating Leeds 4-1, beating, I think it was it Millwall or Bolton or someone 7-1? QPR, there you go. Beating QPR 7-1. That's incredible. Now, West Brom, the last 5 games, they've lost 3, drawn 1, won 1. So they've had a bit of an inconsistent patch in the last few weeks. But at the end of the day, Darren Moore, the manager, unlucky not to keep them up really last season, did an amazing job when he came in as caretaker manager, rightfully got the job and the chance to take them back to the Premier League, but they have probably done the best business out of all the Championship clubs, and that is get Dwight Gale in on loan. He is the best Championship striker in the country. If you put him in any Championship team, he will score 20, 25 goals, no matter what service you give him. All you've got to do is give him the ball, because he is incredible. He showed with Newcastle in the Championship. He basically got them promoted on his own with a few of the players, and they'll be relying on him, the service that he gets from players like Harvey Barnes on loan from Leicester. They will be relying on Dwight Gale to get them promotion and score in those kind of tough games where you don't really see any side scoring, but he's the player that if you put him through, all he needs is one shot and he will score and get you the win that you need. West Brom, they've had a bit of a rocky start. They lost to Bolton on the opening day, and that was almost a bit of a wake-up call to them, because they've okay, so we've got relegated from the Premier League, and it's that point clubs realise that you can't just get promoted back to the Premier League with what you thought were Premier League quality players, because what you find out, and it's almost like a reality check, that when you get relegated from the Premier League, you realise that your players just weren't Premier League quality, and that's why bringing in Dwight Gale has allowed the players which they have kept, like Brunt, like Livermore, to have a second chance and get that confidence back. Because when you're bottom of the Premier League, you're not winning any games. You really do drop down a level in your own game because you don't have the confidence to go up to a higher level. But now that they've got somebody who can score goals and they're winning games from goals all over the pitch, not just Gale, they're having the confidence, and you are starting to see a bit more of players like Jake Livermore. We might see him back in the England squad. Not that I'd agree to putting him back in the England squad, but you never know what Gareth Southgate might think. But okay, so what do you think of Dwight Gale and Harvey Barnes? Do you think they're good signs for West Brom? Do you think they are going to help them in the race for promotion?
One thing I'd really like to say is I'd definitely rather have Dwight Gale than Salomon Rondon. Having said that, he did score 2 goals the other day, so that's good. Dwight Gale, as you said, I'd say he's probably, if not one of the greatest Championship goal scorer in the country. And he's already had a decent start. And another player, Jay Rodriguez, they managed to retain him. And, he is a Premier League quality player.
I completely forgot about Jay Rodriguez.
He's a Premier League quality player. And for me, West Brom are more of a lower mid-table Premier League team. And, the amount of goals they're scoring, 37 goals so far in the Championship, that's by far the most. It just shows that it's kind of where they belong. We've said this about a few of these teams that they deserve to go up, but I think out of all of them, maybe West Brom and Leeds look like they're the best suited so far.
I completely forgot about Jay Rodriguez. Yeah. How did you forget about Jay Rodriguez? He has been brilliant, and some of the goals he's scoring, it just shows you his quality and how he should be a Premier League player. Why he's in the Championship? Why nobody in the Premier League took a punt on him? Why you look at teams like Southampton? Do you not consider re-signing him because he did well for West Brom when he signed for them. So that was a big shock, him not moving somewhere. Yeah. But the combination of the ponytail king in Jay Rodriguez with the braided hair Dwight Gale, I mean, that is an ultimate partnership you want. And like you say, 37 goals in the Championship already this season. That is amazing. Okay, so on to the Premier League news. This week, Ranieri was announced as the new Fulham manager after Jokanovic was rightfully sacked, shall we say? I mean, he wasn't doing the best, was he? So yeah, Harry Ranieri, the Italian, the one of Leicester's heroes, I think, back in the Premier League. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are dilly ding, dilly dong. He's back. I'm happy. I'm happy. He's a great manager. You know, he's a one of a kind man, individual. I like him. I like his style. And in terms of his actual football, I actually think he's going to be really good for them. You know how he set up that brilliant counter-attacking team for Leicester. And you know, one of the biggest problems for Fulham has been their philosophy and the way they set up and their formation. He is going to instill that kind of certainty and that right style that is going to, you know, not maybe save Fulham because they've taken quite a big hit and we don't know how he's going to start, but he's definitely going to improve Fulham because Jokanovic was, I mean, he wasn't playing well. It was quite a dirty style and it wasn't flowing very nicely. So I'm happy to see Ranieri back. I'm looking forward to seeing what Fulham can do now.
Well, what I think he's going to do is I think he's going to bring a confidence to the young players they've got. So I think we're going to see a lot more of Ryan Sessegnon because I think so far he's been a bit of a disappointment, really.
Oh, yeah.
He was so good in the Championship last season. We kind of thought he'd come up immediately and replicate that form and be in the England squad and go to the Euros and whatnot. And so I think Ranieri really is going to bring him a newfound confidence. He's going to probably give him a bit more freedom to attack, like he gave Mahrez at Leicester, like he gave Damari Gray. They're going to have the freedom to go forward. Obviously, they've got Mitrovic, Vieto, Schürrle. Obviously, they're going to be instrumental. I think Tom Kearney's going to play a big role again. And we're really going to kind of see him and his captain qualities come out as he kind of replicates almost what probably Danny, if we try and compare it back to what Leicester were, you know, he's going to be a little bit like Danny Drinkwater in the fact he's going to be a midfielder who's going to go forward and back, who's creative. You've got Seri. I think you're going to see a lot stronger of a defence. You know, Leicester in the season they won the Premier League and even the season after, they were quite strong defensively. So that's the whole idea behind bringing Ranieri is that he was going to strengthen them from the back, but kind of give the young players the freedom to go because they've spent 100 million this season, Fulham, on players, and maybe Ranieri is the man to unlock their potential.
Yeah, I certainly think that's true. And honestly, what you got to do here is you just got to look at what went wrong for Jokanovic, what went wrong for Fulham so far. And that's they've conceded 29 goals already in the first 11 games. That is way too many, and I think he's definitely going to shore them up. Yes, Alfie Mawson's injured, and yes, Tom Kearney is injured, and that's a big issue. But I'm sure that, you know, he's got the players there. You know, there's been an absolute monster in midfield that has been Anguissa. Oh, what a start he's had. But, you know, at the end of the day, they are going to be able to fix it. They've got the quality there. As you know, as you just said, Jack, you know, £100 million on players, there must be some quality there. And I think Ranieri's going to be able to unlock the potential.
Definitely. And he's just the right man for the Premier League as well. He knows the Premier League, you know, from when he was at Chelsea, from when he was at Leicester. It's a solid signing for Fulham in terms of a manager. When you look at teams like Huddersfield, who have said they're going to stick with David Wagner, even if they get relegated, what Fulham's done, they've done it now. They've done it early. He's got a month and a half until January, where if he wants, he can bring in a couple of his own additions that he feels can add to the team. And what's good is, but by doing it before January, he's got a month and a half to assess the squad, assess who he feels is unnecessary, who feels can really have a place at the club to come. So they've done this at the perfect time, Fulham. If they'd done it in January or February, it's way too late because you don't have the time to bring in the players. Nobody's going to join a team in January. Nobody likes to join the team with a chance of relegation, which is why you don't see the best players. So by bringing him a month and a half before the start of the January transfer window, Fulham have got the chance to reclaim a bit of form, move higher up in the table. So when it comes to January, they are more attractive as a club for better players to give them a better chance of staying up, and then once they've secured that place to stay up, go forward next season, and hopefully Ranieri will be the man to build them up in the Premier League, like Bournemouth have done, and really kind of produce high quality football and give Fulham a proper Premier League status.
Yeah, and I think something that's going to be really important for Ranieri is finding that starting 11, or maybe, the first quality players that are going to be there. Because, I mean, has this ever been heard of before? Jokanovic used 3 goalkeepers in the first 11 games. That's crazy to think. They really need to sort that out, and I think he can do that. When he won the title with Leicester, there were a group of regulars who would start the games. Maybe the odd change, but I think that he's definitely going to be able to find those players and sort them out.
So this week, Premier League clubs voted and decided that VAR would be introduced to the Premier League starting from next season. And I think after seeing the Charlie Austin rant, and a beautiful parody to Park Life, that was brilliant. That was. If you haven't seen that, go find that, because that is a brilliant video. So after Charlie Austin's rant, he was perfectly right. That decision was absolutely abysmal. How they disallowed that goal was incredible for the Premier League, the best league in the world. How they disallowed that goal is stupid, and he's right. They need all the help they can get, and finally, if it's used right, and if it's used in the correct format, and it's not overused for stupid decisions like a throw-in, for Christ's sake, if you use it right, VAR is going to be a massive addition to the Premier League.
Sounded almost as passionate as Charlie himself there. Yeah, I think it's a good decision. It's a very controversial thing, VAR, isn't it? But I think when you look at the World Cup, yeah, there were some wrong decisions made, and it wasn't used consistently enough. But in the Premier League, where you've got the infrastructure to make a really good refereeing system, I think that it can work over time. It's going to take adaptation, but I think eventually VAR will pay off. If you're using the World Cup, you should be using it in the greatest league in the world, and I agree with Austin. You could see it in his bloodshot eyes how much it meant to him. So yeah, I think it's a big move. I think it's the correct move, and hopefully it will have a good effect.
Key decisions in the Premier League, can decide relegation and promotion. I think what Charlie Austin was most annoyed about is that because that should have been 3 points for Southampton, that should have been, 3 points closer to the 35 points you usually need to stay up. And when you are a club who doesn't get most of the points in the Premier League, if Manchester City got a goal disallowed, they wouldn't care because they've got the 4 others they've scored to match it. But for Southampton, a team that don't score regularly, they need all the help they can get. And the lower teams in the Premier League need all the help they can get. And hopefully, this edition of VAR next season is finally going to remove all that just stupidity that we see from referees like Mike Dean and Martin Atkinson, who, quite frankly, are they fit to referee anymore? When you look at some of the decisions they make, I sound like I'm ranting a bit, but it's about to get absolutely even worse as we move on to Richard Scudamore, or Scumamore, because he is a £5 million bonus when he chose to leave his position as chief executive of the Premier League is absolutely abysmal. And the fact that clubs are each, apart from like 5 or 6, are each giving money towards that £5 million bonus, it's absolutely ridiculous. Do you know what? Over the 19 years he has been in his position, he has earned £23.6 million. That is ridiculous. 19 years he's been in his role, and it was his decision to leave. So why on earth, when he's on a wage of more than £2 million a year, should he get such a big bonus? I'd love £5 million bonus when I left my job if I chose to leave. It's absolutely ridiculous. £100 million the Premier League, each Premier League club roughly gets from TV income a year, with only 3.6% of that. 3.6% of the annual TV income goes to grassroots football. 3.6%. Stupid. Why are clubs not putting this money into grassroots? Grassroots football is in an absolute state at the minute. It needs all the money, all the investment it can get. It needs Premier League clubs to be the role models for clubs, go into communities. And, often the communities where grassroots football clubs are deprived communities. And the football clubs play such a vital part in reducing crime and getting kids off the street playing football, boys, girls, adults, kids, whatever. Football clubs play such a big part in the community. It should be the Premier League clubs who are setting the example for that. But all they do is focus on themselves, focus on their own money, and I think it's disgusting that they're deciding to give him £5 million instead of investing that money elsewhere.
I can't disagree. Grassroots in this country, it's in quite a lot of trouble, I think. You have a lot of the local teams, and for example, your local team might have 5 different sub-teams, but do we really have a lot of high-quality pitches or, areas for kids to play football and develop better? I don't really think we have as much as maybe we need or we could have. I went to Athens in Greece, and they actually have loads of much better conditioned football pitches rather than just massive fields which say to the kids, oh yeah, you go play in that. And they invest, that's a more clever investment, but just taking £5 million for yourself to spend on, I don't know, what is he going to spend it on? Another car, another house? What? When you could really be changing English football for the better. I think it's, really selfish.
When you look at businesses and global businesses like McDonald's, in their grassroots campaign, it shouldn't be McDonald's which is supporting grassroots. It should be the big football clubs of of Britain, of England. Why, every kid supports Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea. So wouldn't it be good if that club was actually invested in their local community? Because not only would they be a fan, but it would be their favourite club supporting their football club training. Why don't Chelsea send out an under-18s coach to, a community-based football club around Chelsea Football Club? To hold a training session, because just to see somebody who's actually employed by Chelsea Football Club to get better trained coaches, to make better trained players, because this is the future of English football we're talking about. Grassroots is the future of English football. We get, Jesse Lingard's come from grassroots. That's where he got scouted to go into the Manchester United Academy. So many English players in this England squad every player starts out in a youth team that they play for on a Sunday. That needs investment, otherwise international football for England is over in the long-term future. And this bonus has kind of started that whole argument all over again. And it's come at the worst time, really. It's just come at the worst time. And the fact that these clubs have agreed to it is just stupid. And I think we better move on, because I'm gonna explode in a minute.
Yeah.
So rant over. Let's talk about the FA Cup. So a bit of a lighter note, the FA actually supporting smaller clubs for once, and we did see a couple of upsets, which is nice. So Guiseley, non-league Guiseley, knocked out Football League 2 Cambridge, 4-3, 4-0 up. 4-3 sounds like it was a close game, but Guiseley were 4-0 up by 50 minutes. They absolutely smashed them. It was only 3 late goals in the last 5 minutes, which gave Cambridge even the chance, but it was all far too late. And it's nice that we have got an FA Cup upset.
I mean, I'm upset because I love Cambridge United. Always use them on FIFA career mode. Sign Emmanuel Osadibe. He's crazy. He's got 90 pace. Anyway, it was a massive upset. Are we going to see some of these teams knocking out the league? The league clubs out? Are they going to make a bit of a run? Are Guiseley going to win the FA Cup, Jack? What do you think?
I think my nan's got a better chance of winning the FA Cup than Guiseley. But no, it's great to see that. It's great to see them knocking out league opposition, and you've got teams like Salford City. Well, actually, I'm not going to use the Salford City example because they've spent millions of pounds in non-league, so Salford City don't really count for this one, to be honest. But you do have teams like Chorley drawing to Doncaster 2-2, forcing a replay, going 2-0 up against Doncaster. It was Grant McCann's men who only just got a draw back to take that to a replay, so that was a great result. Aldershot forcing a replay against Bradford City. Bradford City, yes, not in the best of form, but when it comes down to the FA Cup, anything can happen, and that was really a chance for them to get back into form, but Aldershot shut the door and said no, and now they will have a replay at Valley Parade. And it's the magic of the FA Cup. The FA Cup is back. It's nice to see it, and so we might as well give our predictions for the whole competition as a whole. And I think if you're going to look at who you want to win the FA Cup, everyone's going to say, oh, it's going to be Manchester United or Chelsea. But what I find strange is that the mid-table Premier League clubs, top Championship clubs, clubs which don't have the opportunity to win great amount of silverware. You look at like Brighton. A team like Brighton should be going for the FA Cup because at the end of the season, it's a piece of silverware. Brighton are going to be safe in the Premier League. There's no doubt about that. Glenn Murray's just signed a new contract. He's going to he will keep scoring forever and a day, Glenn Murray. And the players they've got around, Lewis Dunk now in the England squad, Matty Ryan in between the sticks, they are going to stay in the Premier League. So go for the FA Cup. Try and win it because at the end of the day, your fans are getting a trip to Wembley and, a chance to win the most prestigious cup competition in the whole world. And, I think there's even a rule that if the winner of the FA Cup hasn't already qualified for a European competition, you get Europa League qualifiers. So it's a real chance for Brighton to, further themselves as a club.
Yeah, and it just depends what teams, put out the most strong players they've got. There was a bit of a period recently, wasn't there, where teams were putting out their second-rate players and saying, oh, the FA Cup, that doesn't matter so much. But I think we're back in a place where the teams and the clubs have realised just how important the FA Cup is. So if a team like Brighton do put out their strongest players, they could go on a great run. As you said, they're safe in the Premier League, and they could go, as far as they want to go with some of the players they've got in there. Jahan Baks, he had a really good season before he came into the Premier League. Haven't seen too much of him. Could he maybe light that competition up? It's some fringe players could come in and do really well. So do you think Brighton are like serious contenders, or was that an example, or who do you think is going to win?
I think, I use Brighton kind of as a little bit of an example, but why not? Why not Brighton? A few years ago, Sheffield United got to the semi-finals, only just losing out to Hull City, and Hull City went into the FA Cup against Arsenal, and went 2-0 up. So why can't a mid-table ranked Championship side even, or Premier League side, go for the FA Cup? Last season we had, Peterborough beating Aston Villa 3-1 away. We had, we had Bradford City a few years ago beating Chelsea 4-2 at Stamford Bridge. This is the magic of the FA Cup. This is a moment to really go for something because the money from an FA Cup is so valuable to clubs, and it's why we see cup upsets, because National League clubs are fighting for their own identity and their own survival as a club because they need the money from the FA, to get that new stand, to pay the electric bill for a few months, to pay the players. So the FA Cup is such a big occasion for them, and it's why you see so many upsets. And, that's why it's such a good competition. And who do I think is going to win? At the end of the day, it's probably going to be a Chelsea, Man United, and Man City, but I'd love it, absolutely love it, if we saw, absolutely love it if we saw like a Reading get to the FA Cup final, like we did almost again a few years ago. It'd be great if you saw a team like Leicester get to the FA Cup final and even win it. Arsenal, they've always had a great. I think they're the team that's won it the most amount of times. So they have the history says. The history says Arsenal will win it, but we said a couple of weeks ago that Manchester City should go for the FA Cup because Pep Guardiola, it's another trophy to add to his collection. If he won the Champions League and the FA Cup this year, he's won every competition literally available to him, and that's really going to establish him in the history of Manchester City in the Premier League. Yes, but what Huddersfield, Huddersfield, say that they see themselves as gonna be getting relegated. Why don't they invest in the FA Cup and say, well, right, okay, so we're going to get relegated from the Premier League, but let's go down like Wigan did, winning the FA Cup. Let's go down with a bit of silverware to say, yeah, okay, so we got relegated from the Premier League, but we took our fans to Wembley and we won the FA Cup in front of 90,000 people and millions across the world. And that's really it's a nice way to end the season, the FA Cup. And if Huddersfield, if Huddersfield won the FA Cup, it would take the sting of relegation out, away. And teams like Cardiff, you could go on for hours about teams that could win the FA Cup. But I really think it should be like a low mid-table Premier League club, which has no chance of going up. There might be a chance of going down, but focus on the FA Cup. Try and win something. And Tottenham, this is a chance for Tottenham to win silverware. They should go. The Carabao Cup, the FA Cup. There's a very high chance they're not going to win the Premier League and probably not the Champions League now, as they look to go out into the Europa League. So go for the Carabao Cup, go for the FA Cup, and you can finally claim that Mauricio Pochettino is a good manager, because he would have won you silverware, and finally Tottenham would have won silverware to take to their new stadium and put in actually have something to put in the trophy cabinet rather than putting pressure on Leicester.
Yeah, that's true. It'd be good to see Tottenham win it, obviously, but it's just a question for them with squad depth, really. See, I don't know if they have the forwards, really, to go on and win that. A team who we've spoken about today, they have brilliant squad depth, and that's Fulham. They actually do. They have some really good players. And if Ranieri does get them sorted out, and he does get the squad and maybe some other fringe players to play in the FA Cup games, who knows? Who knows with them? I think you're right about these kind of mid-lower table teams in the Premier League. So are they one of them, maybe? I do think it's probably going to be someone like Manchester United, who are struggling really in the Premier League, and just some silverware to make up for that struggle might be good for them. So we'll just wait and see. I'm not going to say them for definite, but I'm going to say a team such as them could go on and win it.
So like a Liverpool, maybe, Klopp, if it comes to the end of the season, Liverpool again are nowhere near winning the Premier League because Manchester City have stormed out ahead. Klopp should go for the FA Cup. He should go and win some silverware, because Klopp has got to all these finals for Liverpool and never gone as far as winning the trophy. So it's a big chance for Liverpool. And if we did see theoretically a Liverpool Tottenham final, we would see two teams fighting to win silverware, and it'd probably be a really good final. But if the whole kind of season of the FA Cup means we get upsets, championship teams knocking out top Premier League clubs, like we saw with Derby knocking out Manchester United in the Carabao Cup, if we see those kind of results, it's going to make it an exciting season. So we're all excited for the FA Cup. And that brings us to the end of what we are going to be talking about this week. Obviously, there's no Premier League this weekend. I know, I'm crying too.
Shedding a tear.
Yeah, obviously because it's International Weekend. Obviously, we'll quickly mention that England had a solid win against the USA last night, winning 3-0. Obviously, Wayne Rooney making his 120th appearance. Trent Alexander-Arnold scoring an absolute beauty. Oh no, or was it Lingard? Well, Trent Alexander scored anyway, but they both scored. Obviously, great to see Callum Wilson. Big up Bournemouth. 3 weeks in a row, got to big up Bournemouth. Great to see Callum Wilson scoring his first England goal in his first appearance. But Jesse Lingard back to scoring absolute screamers. Maybe he'll take that form into Manchester United. But that does bring us to the end of this week. Thank you for listening. Make sure that leave us a comment, ask us a question, email thefootballnatter@gmail.com if you have any suggestions or your opinions or what we talked about this week. What would you like us to talk about next week? Please do let us know. I've been joined by Harry. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Harry, for joining me. Make sure you join us next week for episode 4 of the Football Natter. But so far, this has been episode 3. We hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.